My name is Kate Daniel. I'm with the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center, and I'll be sharing a few examples of the work that we've done with SAM under the DOE Solar Outreach Partnership, or Solar Ops. So I'll give you a quick overview of our center and the work we do there, as well as a Solar Ops project, and then dive into the examples of how we've used SAM with those projects. So the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center has changed its name from the Solar Center about a year ago. We're housed within NC State University, and we have programs in various energy sectors, including industrial efficiency, clean transportation, renewable energy technology, training and certification, and the policy team, which I'm a part of. And we are also the team that brings you the database of state incentives for renewables and efficiency, also known as Desire, and that's a resource I hope you know and love as much as we do. So in addition to Desire, our policy team works on the DOE Sunshot Solar Outreach Partnership, or Solar Ops. And this is a collaborative effort between many teams and organizations, and you can see the list of our great partners here. As part of the Sunshot initiative, Solar Ops is aimed at increasing solar installations across the country, and doing this by getting at some of the soft costs of solar. So Solar Ops targets, in particular, working with local governments to provide technical assistance on issues such as permitting and interconnection, planning and zoning, solar financing options, and in addition, customer education to get at some of those customer acquisition cost pieces. And Solar Ops performs these goals through four main ways: by providing technical resources such as fact sheets, case studies, and guides, regional workshops for local government and other stakeholder audiences, one-to-one assistance with those local governments, as well as in-depth strategy sessions to tackle specific issues or challenges. So the first example here is a Delaware solar guide that we have put together for the Delaware Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control, which performs many of the state energy office functions for the state. And this is still in draft form, but it's a comprehensive guide for residential customers who are interested in pursuing solar. It covers the very basics of how PV systems work, what they typically cost, what the ownership options and financing options are for customers within the state, as well as specific policies and incentives. And then it actually shows customers what their potential savings might be. And so this is how we use SAM, is to calculate those projected energy savings for a typical customer with a typical sized residential PV system. Our technical expertise is not in modeling energy output or maximizing system performance, so it's really valuable to us to be able to use a PV watts tool within SAM, as well as SAM's calculation of utility bill savings over the lifespan of a typical PV system. And so the ease of inputting the load data, electricity rates, and other inputs, and then the replicability of those runs with different parameters lets us really quickly and efficiently look at savings under a number of different cases for customers. So for example, in this project, we were able to look at 4 different utility service areas. We could look at potential savings with and without state rebates, under different options for monetizing solar renewable energy credits either through upfront payments or by participating in an auction, as well as if customers purchase the system outright with cash or finance the system through a loan. And then, of course, the combinations of those different parameters. And so this is an example table from our draft report that demonstrates how valuable this can be. In this particular example, Delaware is currently reevaluating its green energy program, which are the PV rebates. This program's been pretty heavily subscribed in the last few years, and now has currently pretty long queues and backlogs. And so the state is thinking about some pretty significant changes. And in the face of that uncertainty, we're still able to show customers some bounds of what savings might look like should state incentives go away completely, or should they continue at their current generous levels. And so I think that that's pretty helpful for customers to see those two bounds and know that the true result might be somewhere in the middle. And I think it's also very helpful for policymakers to be able to demonstrate that really tangible impact of a program. Great. And so the second project I wanted to highlight was some direct technical assistance that we performed for the East Central Intergovernmental Association. This is an association of county governments in eastern Iowa. So as such, they are a public, non-taxed entity, funded mostly through fees, and so not having a huge pool of capital lying around for big capital projects. They were interested in potentially installing a PV system on one of their buildings, but wanted some help in deciding which ownership and financing options would be best for them. About a year ago, there was a court case that opened Iowa to third-party ownership structures, including power purchase agreements and leases for customer-sited systems. And so ECIA was interested in what that would mean for them and which option would be best for them to pursue. So we used SAM to demonstrate the potential savings for them under those available options. The cash purchase and loan analyses were pretty straightforward using SAM's model. We decided not to actually model out a lease after talking to some installers. As it turns out, under a lease system, the installer can't monetize the federal tax credit, whereas they can under a PPA, and that makes the PPA much more appealing. So we decided to focus there. The PPA analysis, however, still presented some challenge for us because the SAM doesn't have a built-in financing model for this type of third-party owned customer-sited system. The PPA financial model is designed from the perspective of a developer building a system and looking to sell that output to a utility or other off-taker. However, we realized that we could run SAM using the PV watts distributed commercial model. And once we got to the results section and looked at the financial results, we could export the cash flow to Excel, and there we had a great amount of flexibility to make that cash purchase analysis look like a PPA. And in order to do that, we simply subtracted those initial investment costs that ECIA is avoiding by not actually owning the system, and factored in the annual energy costs under the PPA agreement, also accounting for an upfront buy-down payment and a terminal buyout at the end of the agreement. And so this is what that looked like, with the pink rows being our additional analysis in Excel on top of SAM's output. And the takeaway here is really just that this provided us a great amount of flexibility to work with a situation outside of SAM's normal runs. And you can see a number of different scenarios in which this might be useful. We've considered doing this for different loan or financing options, such as the solar step-down loans that are quite popular for residential customers that have a smaller loan principal and no payments due for the first year in order to allow customers to take advantage of the tax credit. So you can model those debt payments in a non-conventional way in Excel post facto. Another interesting tangent here is that it's currently a bit unclear what the net metering policies in Iowa will shake out to be for third-party owned systems. We originally, this screenshot is from the analysis when we interpreted the policy to be that the utilities would offer avoided cost payments for net excess generation, and that's what we built into our Excel model. As it turns out, they might not offer any payments at all for excess generation, which we could pretty easily change in our analysis either within SAM's electricity rate input section or here in Excel once we've already looked at the cash flow. So again, just having that ability to manipulate those results given the energy output and given the utility bill estimates with and without the system gives us tremendous free rein over the actual financial analyses. And so again, just the main points to emphasize finally are that SAM makes this type of analysis really easy for us policy analysts who are interested in the various impacts of programs and policies. It's very valuable to see those in intangible ways when we modify the structure of a policy or take it away completely to see how those numbers change. And it's also very valuable because we can do these analyses and savings projections for a very wide audience with different scenarios. And we can do that really quickly, efficiently, and easily given tight budgets and times. And that lets us educate a pretty broad swath of consumers. So that's all I have, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Kate. Yeah, and so we will now be spending a few minutes accepting a few questions. So if there's something you would like to know, please feel free to type it into the chat box.
Kate, we have a question in the room of what types of features you think are missing from SAM that enable more detailed analysis of some of the incentives or policies that are being considered or proposed?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind is an actual model for a third-party owned structure, either a lease or a PPA arrangement for a residential or small distributed solar customer. We are actually working with NREL to get our API data feed from Desire to streamline some of the incentive inputs into SAM and the PV Watts model. And I think that will help integrate other analysts using SAM to make sure that the incentives are accurate. But this is something that we always double check in its current status just to make sure that SAM is accounting for the full incentives available in the area of analysis. And I would just recommend to users in the meantime that they double check what those incentives are, and Desire is, of course, a great place to do that.
Great, thanks, Kate. I actually want to point out that in our very latest version of SAM, which is quite recent, we did come out with a third-party ownership financial model. So we would be very interested if you do take a look at that and end up using it to hear feedback on some real-world use cases for it.
Excellent.
We have one other question in the room as well.
Hi, Nick DiOrio here. Just had out of curiosity, as battery storage becomes more popular, I was curious if you'd seen any incentives coming out regarding stationary battery systems in your work. I know there are incentives for electric vehicle batteries, but I'm curious if you've seen anything for stationary storage.
Yeah, so California does have some incentive payments available for storage systems. They've tended to be for larger projects, and I'm not aware of very many incentives that are designed for home residential sized battery systems. This is also something we're currently not tracking in Desire, but would be interested in possibly pursuing in the future if it seems like the number of these grows.
Great, thank you.